I must begin by saying this is not I'm not offering a gravestone or a tombstone, but a capstone. This is not an epitaph. I want to look into the future. But first, let me begin with the past. 30 years ago, many people expected that 30 years later, all of NATO and European Union countries would coexist in domestic and international harmony in a post-communist, post-authoritarian, and post-imperial age. This reminds me a little bit of the science fiction movies in the 50s and 60s that pictured us 21st century humanoids zipping around the Milky Way galaxy, having overcome all of our material shortages and earthbound wars. Time often takes longer than we imagine, and unpredictable factors interfere, retard, and sometimes divert our future. However, we must remain optimistic and determined, just as the dissidents and other forces of resistance showed us during the darkest decades of Soviet and communist rule. Today, we have discussed some of the challenges we face in building secure democracies and constructing cohesive international alliances. Let me just outline 3 positive factors that should inspire all of us to attain more victories in the future. First, let us remember what has been achieved in the past 30 years, not only in defeating communism and rolling back Soviet and Moscow's imperialism. We helped to either liberate or establish 28 new states from the former Soviet Empire. We built an effective transatlantic NATO alliance of 29 countries, and soon to be 30, with others yearning to join. Their membership has often resolved their previous bilateral disputes. We developed a productive European economic, social, and political alliance of 28 states that includes a majority of the former communist countries, with others also yearning to join. We ended brutal anti-civilian wars in the collapsing Yugoslavia, gave tools, resources, and hope to millions of Europeans who thirsted for all the freedoms that we took for granted in the United States, including free speech, free movement, free assembly, and free countries. Xenophobia, racism, populism, authoritarianism, ethno-nationalism, and several other isms, both in Europe and in America, may challenge the core principles of individual, social, and national freedom. But paradoxically, all these threats simply underscore how important these principles actually are, and how important it is to continue to defend and promote them. Second, the governments that are now challenging us globally do not fully represent their people. Surely no one believes that a majority of Russian citizens want to be in a state of permanent war with the West, or that they trust Vladimir Putin and his minions who have stolen their money, their resources, and often their futures. It is both demeaning and patronizing to equate the Kremlin with the people of Russia in all their ethnic, regional, and religious diversity and their individual, social, and national aspirations. The regimes that challenge Western freedoms and threaten Western unity seek to undermine our core values and turn us into pessimists and defeatists. But we are stronger than they imagine. Their offensives can be neutralized, and their people can also become empowered by the vision of liberation. As the Russian economy continues to sink, millions of citizens will also demand their human freedoms and civil rights, and their rightful place as subjects and not objects of the state. And third, please consider our forum and CEPA itself as not only a call to arms, but also a call to minds. CEPA is always looking for new, creative, and effective ways to overcome the threats that face the transatlantic world and to develop our capabilities for expanding Western security and freedom. These 2 concepts, by the way, security and freedom, are core. They're the founding principles of the alliance, and they are inseparable. Without freedom, there is no security, as we are then subject to the whims of state rulers. And without security, freedom is always under threat, especially from hostile powers. The West is threatened precisely by the 2 largest non-democratic states that deny freedom to their people and to their subjugated nations. The anti-Western offensive, whether coordinated or not, is not a coincidence, but a way for autocratic regimes to extinguish any alternatives by combating and curtailing Western and transatlantic influences. America and Europe continue to offer hope for a better life, whatever your nationality. Refugees certainly do not flock to Russia or China in search of a better life. Lastly, I would say this is no time for us to be confused, discouraged, or pessimistic, as that is exactly what the enemies of our freedom and of our security are aiming for. We have the physical and mental powers and weapons to prevail. Harking back to those exciting science fiction episodes, this is precisely the time to boldly go where no analyst or policymaker has gone before. I'll stop on that.